Well, hello, Christian Metal Group. My name is Jimmy. I'm one of the admins for the group.
Yeah, I'm Jay. I'm one of the moderators for the group.
Right, and then we have Britt and Steve here, located in Georgia, and they are with the Christian Geek Rock Podcast.
Yeah.
So
thanks.
Glad to have you. So give us a little history here. How to decide to get started? Why a podcast, and what's your theme?
Well, Britt and I, we just a little background on us. It's like our wives have actually used to work with my wife as well. Didn't you? Did you ever? No, you were in a different school.
Yeah.
My wife and his wife work together, and we have kids in similar grades, and they all are kind of coming up in the same sort of in the same schools, and we would kind of see each other from time to time. And I knew of Britt just through, like, my wife would say, did you know that Becca's husband, he's apparently likes that Christian rock stuff. And and I'm like, okay, that's cool.
And we met at the dad's breakfast, all pro dads.
Yeah. And so we did that, when our kids were of that age. And then just over time, I think the catalyst for it was when the Blood Good documentary was coming out. They did a screening at the Atlanta Film Festival, and Britt and I both expressed interest in it or something like. I mean, we saw each other's name or something, and so then it was like, okay, I need to actually literally connect, because if he's aware that this is even a thing,
right?
He's one of my people. So. So we wound up connecting at that. We didn't go together, actually drug my family to it, which was awesome. But Michael Bloodgood was there, and and his son who directed it was there, and it was a great time. But after that, Britt and I started communicating more, and he worked over at a mission oriented coffee company here locally, and so I would go over there and grab a cup of coffee sometimes, and talk to him. And we would just go on a 1 hour diatribe about Christian rock music. And then we started thinking, I wonder if anybody else it'd be cool to have other people involved in this conversation.
Well, and didn't we go to a Striper show together?
Yeah, we went. Yeah, went to a Striper show.
Where was it? Was that in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was what year was this?
Oh man,
playing with them?
It was like 3 years ago, maybe. I don't even remember the opening band.
It's 3 or 4 years ago. It was probably right before COVID. And then I think I brought it up to Steve one time, because I had listened to Talk is Jericho, had done some podcasts on Christian rock, and also just other 80s rock, and how they went through the albums and stuff that he listened to. And I was like, man, I would love to do this. And so I think I brought it up to Steve, and I said, Steve, basically we could just record this. We could just record what we do, but we could give it a little bit more organization. And I said, and Steve was like, Steve said he always wanted to do a podcast or something. So yeah.
I was in Christian radio back in the kind of late 80s and early 90s. And so I've always and then that was before I moved to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta.
Was that CCM?
Yeah.
CCM radio? Okay.
Yeah. So I did CCM. It was like the station I was on, which is like every station.
How that feels for you and how it's been being able.
Sorry. My phone just started talking.
They do that these days.
But so it was like every other station back then. We had CCM most all week, and then it was like you get 3 hours of rock on Saturdays or whatever. So that's what we did. And
when are people most likely not listening? You can have that slot. You can have that slot for rock.
100%. Yeah.
Bingo. So yes. So we I always wanted to do something more with that. And in fact, when I moved to Atlanta, there was a it was a 91.5. They had a Christian rock show on Saturdays, on
Power
Saturday nights.
source.
Yeah. And so when I got to Atlanta, I like connected with this guy because we had some similar connections. And I went up there and just sat in I didn't get on the air. I just kind of sat in with him for a show. And, you know, that amounted to exactly nothing, but it was still, you know, I've always had this in the back of my mind. And then when podcasting became a thing, was like, man, I almost thought about it. And I told Britt this, is like, I had these ideas of just sort of like sitting in my basement, getting a decent microphone, and then just like chatting about stuff, you know, Christian rock stuff, just about bands or experiences and things like that. But then I kept thinking that would be really boring because it's a lot more interesting to actually have exchange with people and get different perspectives. So the rest, you know, kind of is history on that.
Was the radio show, in fact, was it sponsored by the Power Team? I mean, everybody's wanting.
Well, Steve can rip a phone book in half, so you know there's always that.
Yeah, right.
While he's preaching the gospel to you about how to rip sin in half and stuff, you know.
Hey, man, I've seen those guys.
Y'all connected over Blood Good, went to a striper show. I mean, this is the beauty of a marriage here I see coming.
We saw each other across the crowded room at the All Pro Dads, and it was and I had some background in podcasting, so I already have one. People tell me it's successful, you know. You know how it is. I don't think it is, but people tell me, you know, that it's a successful one, my ministry one. And then I had I've been involved in podcasting for a few years. And I was like, you know, look, if we could work out a simple way to do this, you know, it doesn't have to be that complicated, but we can't be the only guys out there that like to talk about this stuff. And as he and I were talking, we like a lot of the same bands, but we wanted to do stuff that was a little more in our wheelhouse, which for him was a little more alternative rock and Christian rock, and for me was a little more metal. But we like a lot of the same bands in the other genres too, and there just wasn't a podcast doing what we were doing. Nice. And so we were just like, there's got to be other people out there that remember that era of, you know, 1980 through 1995 sort of era. And it was such a unique time, you know, people today, you know, so I sound like an old man, you know, get off my lawn, but, you know, people today just don't, it was just a different time. Like media was a huge thing. You know, there was radio stations and MTV, and there was this popular pop media thing that really drove a lot of the culture in a way that the internet does more now, and you know, in some different ways, but it's totally different. And so for us as young Christians, especially when we had parents who were Christians or we were involved in church, and it was like, well, we don't want to listen to the devil music kind of thing, you know, having those sort of options was just really life affirming for us. And it's just, it was its own time. It's not good or bad. It's just, it was its own time and culture. And so we were like, we can't be the only people who remember that sort of that era and look back on it fondly and might want to talk about it and revisit it, you know?
Well, I think we got a Facebook group with, 48,000 people that said yes to what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that we've come to, I mean, I've done a lot of probably over analysis about this world, you know, of Christian rock from that era of time, to understand that there was a uniqueness to that time period with how the world saw that kind of music, how it created a subculture or a subgenre in a lot of ways. More so than now, because, you know, and we joke sometimes on the podcast about how in the Christian metal group, there's a lot of debate about, you know, is this band Christian? Is this band metal? What defines metal? What defines Christian? Yeah. And it's like a constant everyday, you know, debate. But it's like, it was it was a little more cut and dried in those days from the standpoint of like, you know, who's doing what and where do these people come from, and then what perspective they're coming at it from, because you had the very evangelical blood goods, you know, and honestly, a lot of the metal groups back then were more evangelical than not. But, you know, Believer maybe is a little on the, you know, a little bit not quite as evangelical, but you still kind of understood where they were. And now, of course, those lines are very blurred. If you don't have lyrics that are very explicit, then you just like, but at the end of the day,
I think Tooth and Nail, like when Tooth and Nail came out overall, and Rex Records, like a lot of
yeah.
overall, that's when the lines start to blur. Like, yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and then you know, getting I remember when Rex started getting secular distribution with Circle of Dust and different things like that. There were a lot of, you know, it's like, and then you like, are Circle of Dust really Christian? I don't even know. Did they? And then you find out some bands were like, you know, the only place I could get a contract was on this Christian label, so that's why I signed with them. And that kind of hurts a little bit. But kind of going back to this subgenre thing, it's like we all sort of felt it, that we're kind of in that music back then. It was palpable, sort of like the impact that it had on a lot of our lives. We just chatted with Todd Zeller today, who's doing the Us Kids documentary for Christian alternative music from that era, you know, the Undercovers, the Altar Boys, the Adam Again, 77s. Nice. And so they're doing a documentary about all that. And he kind of, you know, echoed a lot of our sentiment of like this, you know, those of us who were in that time, not to say like get off, you know, you kids don't know anything, but there was something about it back then that it almost seems like it meant more. It was more than music. It was who we were.
It was magical. I mean, it really was. You show up, you know, to a hardcore show or a punk show, and there's people from all over the region, and you only know them from the shows.
Yeah.
And you couldn't connect with them like this, or you know, maybe at one point there was MySpace or whatever, but it wasn't the same. But back to what you were saying, Steve, about the, you know, what defines metal and all that, has, since this group has been around, and it's not going to go away, because I mean, you got people literally from all over the world, and Hunter, and this comes up almost every interview we do too. Yeah. It's like Demon Hunter and Skillet is the hardest band that they know, and to them that might as well be Training for Utopia or something. You know, it's just like mind blowing. But if you go back to the 70s, like I have a cassette that's got, I can't remember all of them, but I know Aerosmith's on there, and it's called Heavy Metal Giants. You know, so heavy metal, I guess it does mean different. It's different to different people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that me and Vic and also I can say Marlon now, we're probably like three of the biggest metal gatekeepers of the group for sure. Like we're always like, it's not metal enough. Like we're, you know, in our chats for sure. We're like,
we gotta have that though. I mean, we gotta keep a pulse on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think metal for me, I kind of look for blues elements or prog elements or like something, you know, like if you're just playing like 3 chords in a song and try to pass off as metal, you might as well be alternative or punk rock, you know. Like that's all it is to it. So I'm very much, you know, like just born metalhead, and I'm just always trying to emphasize. Like,
Jay is a master musician, so he can speak to this. So
yeah, what do you play, Jay?
Okay, so yeah, I play keys and drums mostly, but I'm constantly also writing riffs. So like that's it. I got a couple of guitars back here,
and he sings. He sings too.
Oh yeah, I do sing. Yeah, so that's all interesting. But yeah, like I said, we really try to. I don't know. The other people, the other admins and moderators are definitely a lot more lenient than the three of us are. And we get on Jimmy every once in a while, even like if he decides to post something about Switchfoot, we're like, no,
that's come on now. I haven't posted Switchfoot in a couple years.
I'm messing around. So I got a question. So the podcast is called Christian Geek. So let's talk about the geek element of what you all do. Like, where did that part come from? Are you all geeks? What makes you geeks? And I think that word is even probably evolved since it was like back in the day. I mean, I'll speak quickly on the evolution because I know. I mean, back in the day when if you would call it geek, it was a very
right.
It might mean that you're smart or whatever, but it was very derogatory. And now, in 2023, people, I guess the geeks grew up, and now it's like you're really smart and usually has something to do with tech or something like that. But yeah, what do you all mean by geek? And are you all geeks or whatever, nerds, whatever?
Yeah, I can. I think from my perspective, first of all, I think once you get to a certain level of maturity, you can wear things with a badge of honor because,
Right.
like when I got called a band nerd in high school, it hurt. When I get called a band nerd now, I'm like, and I tell my kids this, both of my kids are band nerds. It's like I tell them like, hey, own it because this is actually what you'll remember fondly from school. So, but it's like from the geek standpoint, I think more from the lines of like music geek and diving deep into lyrics, diving deep into musicianship, diving deep into liner notes and artwork and that kind of stuff. Because some people, they get a CD, they pop it in, they listen to it, and it's like, yeah, this is good music. And some people buy the CD, pop it in, listen to it, open it up, open up the thing, read the lyrics, read this was recorded at such and such studio, this was the guy who produced, that kind of stuff. And we're kind of more in that vein.
Yeah. Nerds were always the intellectuals. It's from my perspective. They were always the academic people. They were getting all A's and they were, sort of Revenge of the Nerds sort of stereotype back in the day. And then geeks were always the people who knew a lot about some obscure topic. Like a geek, if you're a geek about something, you knew a lot about something that you did things like comic books, or you did things that not a lot of people were into. And you're totally right, Jay. That word has evolved to be a very positive thing, because when Marvel makes movies, although not as much anymore in the last couple of years, but when Marvel makes movies that make billions of dollars, then the comic book geeks aren't necessarily looked down upon as much anymore.
Right, exactly.
Mainstream.
Yeah, they're more mainstream, and so. And just there's especially in an era, and I think social media and the internet has done a lot for this too. You can find your space on like we're doing with our podcast. You guys are doing with the Christian metal group. Like you can find your own space of people who are interested in some very specific topic like you are. And Christian metal is still varied enough to the point we were talking about earlier about what is metal, sort of conversations, that there's still enough variety within some of these topics that there's so much that you can delve into. So I think you're right. It's the term has evolved to be not something people look down upon anymore. So it's good.
That's cool. I think me and Jimmy, like both of us, our backgrounds are definitely like just, nerdy or geeky as crap. Like, novels everywhere, music stuff, music memorabilia. I know Jimmy over here, he's all posting stuff, man.
My office is my music room. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it though.
My wife won't let me put too much music in here because it's the first room. As soon as you walk in the front door, you see it. So it's like
this is my one room. So
yeah,
the rest of the house I'm not allowed, but this is mine.
That's awesome. Have your room. Well, and also for Steve and I, we focus on these genres because we like them probably the most. But I think from looking at some of your posts, especially Jimmy, we have very eclectic tastes in music, and so do you. And I really appreciate some of your posts, Jimmy, because it's like I know you do the Christian metal group, but you've got all sorts of different artists for albums and stuff that you and we're the same way. Yeah. And so, but for us, we were geeks, and I think there are a lot more of us than we realize sometimes. But we were the kind of geeks, like Steve said, that we would we would read the liner notes and we'd be like, oh, this guy played bass, but he also played bass over here. And we'd start, putting all this stuff together, because you're right. We didn't have the internet to search this
Right,
stuff.
right.
So, but there were newsletters back then, man. They were
Magazines, man.
There were little magazines that, locally, that especially here in Atlanta. What was it called?
Creative Living.
No, there was the Christian one.
Christian.
The Shades of Gray. Shades of Gray, or whatever it was, where they'd have news in there, and you just couldn't wait to look at that. And then we would go to shows, like me and a couple friends. They were about a year younger than me, but we would go to every show, like any show, even if we didn't like the band. If they were Christian, we were going to go to that show.
Yeah.
But we started to wear ties over our t-shirts. And we would find the ugliest looking ties we possibly could, and just being goofy. And we were known as the tie guys. People were like, oh, the tie guys are here. That means it's going to be an awesome show, because we would just,
even if it wasn't ska.
Even if it was, it didn't matter what it was. But it was all about being goofy and cool, and just not caring necessarily what people thought. But it was, like Steve said, it was a magical time, if you want to say that. But it was just a time in history that we won't have again, and that's okay. But it's something, I think, parts of it especially, that I think it's important to celebrate and remember and not forget, because I think there's still some things we can learn about it, even though we may never have it again. There's still some elements to it that sometimes I think the Christian world today needs to kind of rediscover some of the artistry and some of the creativity. Not every song needs to be a praise song. Like we can have some artistry, and we can have some, not that I don't like praise songs. I love it. I love to worship God. But to me, a well-written, a well-crafted song in different genres allows you to express a more holistic view of life,
And all worship music doesn't have to sound the same.
Right.
What?
Oh, yes,
what?
Lord.
Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Same with hymns. I mean, I've been having this. I'm an anti-hymn person. Like, I've been having this discussion on some of my pages. It's so funny, because it offends so many people, and I'm all for the offense, for sure.
Right.
That's right.
Because it's like, if a hymn is a song of praise to God, then why are hymns regulated to like songs and hymn book type of thing? So yeah, people just get offended. But diversity in Christian music is so important. I think that what has happened is like bandwagons. A lot of people jumping on so many bandwagons in the 90s. Man, there were so many groups, and they were all trying to like explore so many different genres.
Yeah.
Now it's like everything now is either like metalcore, or it's like skillet music, or or some something along those lines. A lot of people have, like I said, they've gotten comfortable, and creativity, like, God, it was great in the 90s.
Well, it's like, I feel like I picture it being like, you've got a rock that goes into a tumbler. I feel like we're like tumbling the edges off. So it's like everything is just sort of homogenized a little bit more, and it's good. It's a little smoother, a little easy, more palatable. Whereas sometimes we need a little bit of edginess. And so,
well, the song, there's no edginess in the Psalms at all. Because every one of the Psalms of David, it has a verse, a pre-chorus, a chorus, another verse, another pre-chorus, another chorus, and then a bridge that you do forever, and then you go back to the chorus, and then isn't that every Psalm? No, like if you've read some of the Psalms, man, those things are metal songs. Some of them, they are edgy, man.
Psalm 90. I talk about Psalm 91 a lot, because Psalm 91. 1,000 shall fall outside, 10,000 thy right man. That right hand, that's like 11,000 dead people. Like
that's a living sacrifice.
That's more than the Cannibal Corpse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the bodies hit the floor, right?
There we go.
Yeah, there's a video that says how to write a Christian song, and it's basically what you're talking about.
Yes. I've seen it. It's hilarious.
They all follow that formula. So how many episodes do y'all have now? What are you up to?
We just recorded 57. So,
Nice.
and then
Thanks.
if you factor in the special ones that we did with unfortunately talking about people who passed away like Mylan and Ted Kirkpatrick and some of that, we're around 60.
Okay. Out of 60. All right. So tell the audience, and hopefully we get some new listeners here, what are they getting when they come to your podcast? What content are they getting? And then also I want to know, both of you, what's been one of your favorite podcasts that you recorded?
Okay. I would say, well, I'll answer the first question, the second question first. I think I maybe had the most fun with One Bad Pig Smash. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was the first podcast, because if you go through our timeline, everything before that, we just talked about the songs without listening to them. And then from there on, we've added song clips, which to me makes a massive difference. But so that's kind of mine. And then what people get when they listen, you'll get Britt and I just kind of we kind of are trying to create a little bit of a community of people who enjoy just sitting down, air quoting, sitting down with us and catching up, talking about different stuff that we've seen online and different things. And then we go through we talk about news, things we've seen, some vinyls getting reissued, et cetera, et cetera. And then we break down the album. We'll take a specific album and we'll break it down from the standpoint of, what does this album look like in the terms of the band's catalog? What is the artwork like, et cetera, et cetera. And then we just go song by song and we talk about all the songs, and that's kind of how we've set it up. So
nice.
Yeah. And as a musician as well, Jay, I've written tons of songs, and I thought at one point I thought my calling was to be in a Christian band and, lead people to Jesus through heavy metal music myself. I had hair all the way down my back and the whole thing. So there's a lot of analyzing of the songs and the music and the thing and the lyrics. And I would say some of my favorites are some of the interviews that we've gotten to do. We've gotten to interview some of my heroes. I mean, Mike Stan from Altar Boys, Ray Parra from Sacred Warriors, one of my favorite vocalists of all time. Absolutely. I think he's so phenomenal. We got to interview. I
met him real briefly at Immortal Fest. It was.
Oh, did you?
Such a nice dude.
Man. Well, I'm thinking about going. I forget when it is, but there's another time. I'm trying to remember. They're
when they do 2 weekends, and it's an 8-hour drive for me. I can't.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, but there's a show that Sacred Warrior and somebody else, Skillet. Is it Skillet? They're doing Skillet. They're doing a show together.
Well, there's a bunch of them. Like Pillar was playing with.
No, it's Pillar. You're right. It's Pillar. I want to go to that show.
I miss Pillar. I forgot about that.
Oh man, that would be so great.
The promoter. So there's a guy that has been in the Christian music world. He owned a record label, and he got connected with the guy who owns this building. It's venue, which used to be. It was built as a RC race car track.
Oh wow!
And for whatever reason, all that didn't work out, and so he grew up listening to this music. And now they're booking these bands. Like
it's so great.
They have some really good shows coming up. Queensryche with I don't know.
I hated that I missed that one.
Yeah,
but so interviewing him, and then we interviewed Laverty and then the guitar player from Barren Cross, just being able to talk to some of these guys that were huge heroes of mine.
Jim Laverty and
Jim Laverty.
Okay.
But we haven't pushed as many interviews, mainly because we've gotten to know Joel Walker, and he gets so many people.
Yeah, we interviewed him. He's a good
guy. And he's been on our podcast, and we'd love to have one of you guys maybe on a podcast, because sometimes we like to have guests on, and they get to pick an album from that era that we haven't done.
And you mentioned, I'm sorry to cut you off. You mentioned Mike Stan. What a great name is that for?
Right?
I mean, for a stage name, that is perfect.
We brought that up with him too.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So those are a lot of my favorites, just because, I was such a fan back in the day. Like we were geeks, and being able to actually talk to these guys is
Sure.
special. But I thought the Freedom episode was good. I love doing Adam Again Dig,
Wow.
and yeah, doing the songs has definitely made a big difference.
All right. So, now you talked about people you've had on the show. Let's talk about who would be a bucket list guest for you all, for sure. And then also, while I'm at it, I might as well say this: what's your favorite subgenre of heavy metal? Maybe even include a couple of bands.
Hmm.
You want to take this first, Britt?
Yeah, sure. So I think it might be the same, but if I'm going first, I'll take it. Michael Sweet is probably my bucket list. I know he's probably my bucket list, and we've been kind of close here and there, and we kind of make fun of it. I mean, at least I kind of poke fun at the fact that we'll never get Michael Sweet in for the podcast, and people keep telling me.
You could just ask Jay to text him,
Oh yeah, ask Jay to text him.
Oh, we've heard that before.
Yeah, we've heard that before. There's some guys from maybe Petra, some of the original guys from, not original, but John Schlitt and Hartman. Some of those guys from Petra, I think would be really, really interesting interview. So those would probably be my top guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gosh, let's see. For me, Striper for sure. And this maybe ventures a little outside of well, depending on how you look at it, but I'd love to get Galactic Cowboys, some of those guys.
Oh yeah. Or King's X, some of those guys.
Yeah, like Monty Colvin or
Ben Huggins. We might be able to get Ben Huggins. To be honest,
that would be great.
We might be able to get him.
Where is King's X and Galactic Cowboys from? What state? They're both from the same state, right?
Houston,
Texas.
Houston. Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah,
Houston. So one of my bucket lists, which is I mean, I'm not trying to bring us down. Man, I was trying to bring us down. Is Gene Eugene. I would have loved to have done an interview with Gene Eugene, and I'm thinking of that because we did the interview just a few hours ago with the guy from Us Kids documentary, and he mentioned Gene Eugene, and just what a talented man, what a talented dude. And Adam Again Dig is one of my favorite albums of all time. And I have so much respect for him as a creator, a songwriter, musician. I would have loved to have, picked his brain a little bit.
he was involved in so many different things. Yeah.
Like his name was on everything. Like you start looking at liner notes, you're like, oh yeah, okay. Gene Eugene, Terry Taylor, these guys were.
But wasn't there? I feel like I have a CD or I've seen one called Bad Eugene. Wasn't that a band or something?
Yeah, but I think they were like a '90s band.
Not related.
No, this was good Eugene. This was the good. We're not talking bad.
Well, I got one for you. I'm just was thinking you're talking about Eugene and all. Do you know who Wyrick is? Travis Wyrick.
Right. Oh yeah, he's totally dope.
He was actually just was he on? I think he was on Joel's show recently. I listened to the podcast. So
how do I know that name?
Well, he has
a
band. He was a one-man band called Wyrick, which is industrial metal.
Okay.
But he has produced almost every band you can think of.
Yeah, all the metal bands for sure.
Like Disciple. Pillar.
Yes, that's where I know the name.
It's a long list of bands. It's
Wow.
the amount of bands that what's his name from Demon Hunter, Ryan, has done artwork for. He's probably produced at least that many.
Wow.
He's right.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
That's where I know the name because he has done. Disciple is one of my favorite bands ever. I mean, I love those guys.
He was on Mothership. That's what it was. Backstage Mothership. Yeah, okay. Disciple. I'm not as big of a fan now, but if you look like By God and before.
Oh man,
I've seen them at least 15 times. I mean, one of my.
Oh man, yeah, me too.
Well, this is a funny story in the Disciple. I was going to say it earlier when we were talking about the Striper show that Britt and I went to, but Disciple really kicked it into my memory because my neighbor, I have a neighbor across the street neighbor who is a big, like massive Disciple fan, which I found out. And he's got his kids all into it, and his brother, and everybody's into it. I've never been a big Disciple fan, but I still think they're pretty good. But the funny thing is I went with Britt to this Striper show down in downtown Atlanta or Midtown, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I feel a tap on my shoulder. It's my neighbor, and at that point I had no clue that he was into Christian rock, into 80s Christian rock, understood. Because I assume that nobody is. You know what I mean?
That's a good
just
assumption.
Like,
that's a safe assumption.
You just assume nobody. And I'm like going, what are you doing here? And it's like, I love Striper. I'm like, you love Striper? Anyway, we had a moment. It was great.
They're so good live too. Striper.
Oh, they're so great. Yeah, they are. Michael, you're so great live. It's so you're so amazing. Sorry.
Yeah, because I'm sure he's listening to this podcast.
I know. Hey, the hashtag right now.
You got to tag him. You got to tag him, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. The secret with Michael is you got to tag him and say something like, he's really not that good of a guitar player. You got to say something that's going to trigger him. That's the way. You got to get him. You got to trigger him somehow. That's the way to do it.
Or like Oz Fox did all the solos.
Ozfox.
Ozfox, no.
All you gotta do is bring in a little controversy.
Clickbait.
Hey,
I know. See, we mentioned bands. So like I said, don't forget the other part of the question. Just favorite heavy metal subgenres.
Oh yeah, that part.
Well, for me, it was heavy progressive, which is why Sacred Warrior is right there along my favorites, because I enjoyed Haven back in the day. It was they had, especially that second album was a lot more progressive, and there weren't a huge amount of progressive Christian in the 80s, early 90s. You had a little bit more from the European side in the 90s kind of come out. But Vine Domine was somebody that kind of came out in the 80s. But that sort of I always liked really heavy music and a lot of dynamics and really that sort of high, almost operatic sort of singing style, which is why I love Deliverance's first couple albums. That was really my wheelhouse. That's my favorite as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. I think for me, it has, and I don't know, especially spending time in the Christian metal group. I'm not sure if I'm on an island here, but like the singing matters a lot to me. Like the vocals, I like melodic vocals. I like that's why I love the old Sacred Warrior, the first few albums, Deliverance. I like. And that's why immediately, as soon as I heard King's X, I was immediately just sucked in the vortex, and I've been in it for 35 years.
Right.
So it's like, that's the kind of thing. And so, and then occasionally, like there's some, with the growling and the the screamo and stuff like that I I'm okay with, but it's like sort of a little more progressive, a little more, like melodic vocals and sort of melodic song structure. Like I like that. So nice. I don't know if that's like, although I will say this too. I was thinking about this earlier. I remember, like a lot of people, I got into Christian music sort of, with the Steve Taylors and the Petras and kind of progressed through there. And then Bloodgood came out in '86. And that was kind of like, ooh, what about this? And then I still remember, do you guys know a band called Apostle?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with them a little bit, yeah.
I got a cassette tape of Apostle, Masters of the Metal. And I remember popping that in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is what metal sounds like. Got it.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I still have I have a dub of that one. I have the actual cassette of White Metal, which is it's still pretty good stuff.
I mean, that's got to be pretty rare, I would think.
Oh man, I can't even imagine. Yeah, King's X for me they're almost their own category.
Oh
like
yeah,
King's X.
Have you seen them live?
Oh, we went to their show.
I've seen
together
them when they came to Greenville.
Oh man, I've been to
so
many.
Jealous. I'm so jealous, yo.
Man,
I've never seen them live. This is funny.
Well, dude, next time, it might be a year or two, but next time, let's put it together.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's go.
I'll go to another show.
Jay,
Yeah.
I got a question. How many subgenres are there?
Right
Oh,
there, you go.
So there's probably about, so the last that I checked, there was a documentary on MTV or VH1 or something where can't remember the dude's name that did the documentary, but he definitely listed all these subgenres of metal, and it looks like it's 40.
I can't keep up with that. No.
Yeah, and what's crazy is I keep up
I'm
with
with
all
you.
of them. I keep up with all of them for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, King's X, man, just back to them for a second. It just I recorded a song. I got a band. I'm not going to talk about the band that much, but basically I have a band. It's mostly a one-man band with friends, that type of thing. But the song that we just recorded that should be out at some point in the very near future. Yeah, it's so King's X.
Oh, nice.
A friend of mine who's a big fan of King's X from Norway played bass on it, and he I just sent it to him, and he was like, "Yo, this is so King's X." I didn't tell him anything about the influence. Like,
That's awesome.
This is so King's X. I was like,
And he picked
yes,
up on it.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait for that one. That one, I actually wrote it or arranged it or whatever with Doug in mind, but I was like, "There's no way I'll be able to contact him." So I guess my other friends,
Yeah.
look, if he ever listens to it, and and says anything, then I'm gonna be like, "Yo, there's a spot for you to record."
Yeah.
Well, hey, Britt and I are prominently featured on a live video from their Atlanta show.
We're stars.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're on screen for like a minute.
Oh
I feel
man,
like it's like a full minute. I don't know why. We're not.
Were you
I'm not
moshing
that
though?
good.
No, I'm just
I'm in 2 music videos for maybe a combined half second. Like I just know it's me there. So all right. So tell us, what's the last live show you went to, and what's your top 2 or 3 live concerts you've been to ever?
oh my god. Well, the last one's easy because it's the same for both of us.
Yeah. That was King's X.
Oh, okay, of course.
I mean, unless you count my daughter's orchestra concert last night, unless you count that.
I mean,
Yeah, I went to see my son play jazz band last Friday.
there you go. Hey,
Man, my top show. There's no way I could do a top.
like top 3 maybe, just like sticks out in your mind. The stage show, the lighting, the music, everything was just perfect. Like what is a couple of bands that you've seen live that just really stick out to you?
Do we have to stick in metal, or can we go all over the place?
Do whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, go and do whatever you want. We'll excuse it this time. No.
Man,
I think for me it's Adam Again at Cornerstone 91.
Okay.
That was
there you go.
transcendent in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, let's see. King's X in 92 at the Roxy in Atlanta, because that was because I only knew them for what they were known for, the sort of real progressive heavy music.
Mm-hmm.
They blew their bass amp early in the show.
It's a classic show.
Yeah, played almost the entire show acoustically. So it was like an hour and a half of King's X acoustic, which was
yeah.
Well, I know that was crazy. Wow.
Yeah, those are 2 very memorable shows.
Man, I mean, I'd have to put Queensryche around 91 in there.
Nice.
That show was just on another level. King's X around 92. I wasn't at that one, but King's X around probably the Dogman tour was a phenomenal show. I went to a show with King's X and Galactic Cowboys.
Whoa!
Down at the Masquerade, which was it was on another level. Nickel Creek, who you may not even know who they are, but Nickel Creek, their first album I think is genius. And man, I went to one of their shows, their bluegrass, basically, and my wife and I went to one of their shows and just that just blew us away. I mean, like they were doing stuff, virtuoso type of stuff on the mandolin and guitar and violin. I was like, this is better than anything. There's a Joe Satriani concert from Flying in a Blue Dream back in the day.
Oh wow!
At the Fox, that was phenomenal. But I'm telling you, there was a time for about 2 or 3 years that if you went to see Bride, you were going to get your face melted off. I'm just telling you, there was a couple of years there, Snakes in the Playground, right after Snakes in the Playground, a little bit into Scarecrow Messiah, where if you saw them live, they were going to melt your faces right off. I mean, and they were trying to do it. That was their goal that night, to blow everybody out of the room with rock. And it was just so, yes, some of those Bride shows were great. There was a Charlie Peacock show I saw that was amazing.
Ooh, I think I was there.
Yeah, I think it was at Mount Perrin.
Y'all saw everybody. I'm so jealous.
I know, right? Yep.
I mean, there was a lot. There have been a lot of bands. You guys know, like being somewhere live, when they do it right, when they perform, man, it's just energy.
I didn't know you were going secular. See, if you're going secular,
they said anybody
secular.
Yeah, we just
okay. So the best show I've ever seen, like I would say by a long shot, was, not to flex a little bit, but my brother-in-law got me a ticket to this, so it was, and I paid to fly out there. But we saw David Gilmour at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh
wow.
Nice.
That was
amazing, ridiculous.
And we were like ground level, so we were like, that was crazy.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was a show. There was also a DC Talk and DeGarmo and Key show that was one of the best shows I've ever seen as well. DeGarmo and Key were amazing musicians. They were amazing live. They rocked. And then of course DC Talk was in their prime. Right around Free at Last. Yeah. And they put on a great show as well.
I got to know if y'all went to this show. This was in the late 90s, and I know it came through Atlanta. I didn't believe this was real, but I've had people confirm it, because if I would have known about this, I would have been there. There was a tour that came through Atlanta with Project 86, Supertones, and the Gospel Gangsters.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't go to that one.
I would have been at that show.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was a big Project 86 fan back in that time frame.
Oh man.
That's one band that I love every album. I mean,
I love them too.
So creative.
I love that style.
15 times as well. Them and Disciple. Only band I've seen more than that would be Spoken.
Wow. Wow.
I'm
trying to think of the Christian band I've seen the most. Probably Extol or somebody,
Oh,
really?
I've never seen
Sacrifice. So I definitely, besides Cornerstone, the only shows that I've really, and Striper, like I've seen.
Yeah.
I think I've always gravitated towards extreme metal when it comes to like shows to see.
Yeah.
And everything else, like of course, like the early 90s, my parents were like, "Nah, you're not going to see any rock at all. It's all Satan," you know what I'm saying?
Oh, right.
It was that kind of thing.
So, dude, real quick, since you just said Living Sacrifice, and we're on this subject, one of my all-time favorite shows it was Project 86, Stave Zakers, Living Sacrifice, the Hammer and Process tour.
Oh God, that tour,
dude! That album, I just listened to that album recently. I like Living Sacrifice. Again, the vocals aren't as my favorite, but the hammering process is like that, man.
They had
another level, man.
What was the percussionist? Was it Lance?
Matt. It was Matt.
Matt.
His brother is the lead singer of Norma Jean.
Gotcha. Lance had it was pitch dark, and he had that paper that burns real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Lit it on fire, and he started that opening. Oh my gosh, it was that room exploded. It was so good. So good.
Man.
Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. No, that's Living Sacrifice was so elite at that time. I love them now. I saw them recently at Furnace Fest. But
Oh, wow.
I love that they're still playing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I saw them I only saw them live in the beginning, like when before the hammering process. But
Okay.
when there's a show I talk about all the time with the Prayer Chain at a festival close to Interseeds or whatever, was one of the most transcendent shows I've ever been to. Seeing the 77s on like
Wow.
like a side stage
Yeah.
on the Pray Naked tour, where they did Nobody's Fault But Mine by Led Zeppelin. You're wearing the
Mhm.
T-shirt of Led
Yep.
Zeppelin, and
Absolutely.
they and literally, because I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, I learned how to play the guitar and bass with Led Zeppelin,
Nice.
and so basically, when they pulled out Nobody's Fault But Mine and nailed it,
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, like, I liked the 77s, but when they did that, I was like, that just, because that drummer anyway, I mean, it's all the drums are what makes that song. What was it? Smith, right? Aaron Smith?
Aaron Smith.
Yeah.
I have an
A
interesting
Train,
story
baby.
about that. So HM was discussing that particular song, and that's what got me into the 77s, was like reading that little article about it. So what they were saying about the song is that Led Zeppelin stole the song from Blind Willie Johnson.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
And took some lyrics out.
Well, I mean, they stole a lot of stuff. I'm not too surprised.
Oh,
Right, so
they
yeah,
stole a lot.
They stole the song from Blind Willie Johnson, and the 77s covering that song was a way for them to bring the song back to gospel.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was like, let me check this out. So I heard it. So I definitely heard the 77s version before I heard the Led Zeppelin version. And I was blown away by that whole Drowning with Land in Sight was the album. And
Sure.
yeah,
great.
that album was it was very amazing to me, for sure.
I remember I was at a show, and I think it was like a Sixpence None the Richer show. That was at the Pterodactyl. You remember the Pterodactyl, Britt?
Very, very well.
It was at the Pterodactyl. And I remember before the show started, or between bands, they started playing Drowning with Land in Sight, but it was before it came out. And all of a sudden it kicked into Nobody's Fault But Mine. And I was like, who the heck is this doing this song? And then whenever they kicked in, I was like, oh, and okay, that's the 77s. And at that time I was just in my wheelhouse with the 77s. I was so excited.
Was that a venue in Atlanta?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was up in Cobb County.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we, at least for me, that I have some of these bucket list items is a lot of these bands from California didn't come out to Atlanta. They didn't come out our way. Very rarely, unless it was a festival, maybe. And like Barren Cross, Sacred Warrior, like these guys never came out this way. And like a lot of my favorite bands never would. And so, but there was a guy, and he had a little group here locally that he started the Shades of Grey newsletter. He was a little more on the alternative side, but he would have people come in from all the rock alternative sort of stuff. And he had a little spot called the Pterodactyl, and he would just have as many bands there. And then they did the Strand, right? Then there was the Strand. It was all in the Marietta area.
Okay.
And because before that, it was either a festival or a church somewhere. There was a couple churches around the Atlanta area, and they might play a band. Like I saw, Holy Soldier and some of these guys at some of these churches, but he was huge, man, in the late 80s through like the mid 90s. Like this guy, what was his name? He had his own band too, where he played the guitar.
Marty Bush.
Good job.
Wow.
But he had, I mean, he helped Third Day get started.
Oh, wow.
He recorded Third Day's first album. And he helped, a lot of these guys locally here in Atlanta. He helped a lot of these guys have a platform, have a stage, and really get started. And so he was a goofy dude. That's for sure.
Awesome. I've been to a lot of shows in Atlanta. I mean, I'm 2 hours from Charlotte, 2 hours from Atlanta. My area, Greenville, South Carolina, has always had a weird, I don't know if weird's the right word. The music scene's always been a little odd. So there's always shows in Atlanta and Charlotte, but there's sometimes shows here, not always. So I've been to a lot of shows, to the Masquerade and the Tabernacle. The Tabernacle is one of my favorite venues. The sound,
it's great,
amazing.
It's great.
Oh, have you ever been to? There's one called. There's a venue called the Drunken Unicorn. Have you ever been there?
No. But now I want to.
I know, right?
I feel like
it's a basement under a tattoo shop, and went and saw a listener there.
Oh wow!
I don't think I
remember.
Where is this?
Somewhere in Atlanta. I couldn't tell you.
I've heard of it before, but I've never been there.
Now I have to go. Field trip time, Steve.
That's right.
I'm writing this down. Drunken Unicorn.
Last show I went to in Atlanta was for Theocracy. Paladin, I think, opened for them.
They put on a great show too.
Yeah, which the Paladin's singer is now their new Theocracy's new guitar player.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they had some drama with that dude.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go into it, but
Theocracy is a clear favorite.
Oh man, I love it
in the group, as you all probably know.
Oh yeah, it's funny. Between Demon Hunter and Theocracy.
Yeah, Demon Hunter, Striper, Theocracy.
You know, where's he from? Augusta or something, right?
Yeah, he's
Athens,
somewhere
from
close.
Athens.
Yeah,
Athens.
Okay.
Nice.
Which I'd never even heard of them until like a year or two ago.
Yeah, same. Only a couple years ago for myself. Yeah.
Man.
He did everything on the first album himself.
Right, he did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
Well, tell us, as your ministry and your podcast and everything that you got going on, what can we do for the Christian Metal Group? How can we support you? What can we do for you and help you?
I think just being a place where, you know, we can continue to interact with people, you know. Yeah. Honestly, we're here to just sort of, ultimately, if you look at it, we're here to support the artists and keep their memory alive, because we focus on like early mid 80s to early mid 90s. That's kind of our wheelhouse. And so whenever we do metal albums, it's going to be metal albums from that era. And you look at people like Les Carlson with Bloodgood, and that's, we're just trying to keep that fire burning for that era of the genre, and for people to understand, especially in the Christian metal world, why these bands today have a platform is because these bands came behind them. So just listening.
That's what our ministry with Christian Metal Group, we support people like you who support the bands, and we support the bands, and they are spreading the gospel, and God can use anything. So sorry. Go ahead, Britt.
No, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Steve and I have found, again, like you heard our story, we were just like, if we get 15 people listening to this, you know, great. But what we have found with you guys and with Joel Walker and a couple other, you know, podcasts, other people doing different sort of podcasts, is we found friends and network, and we found a network of people and partnerships, because we're not all doing the same thing, and we're all doing something a little different. And so that's why, like I said before, like we kind of backed off on a lot of the interviews we were trying to get, just because it was like, look, let's have our wheelhouse, let Joel have his, and let's be partners. Let's network with this thing. And because none of us are making, maybe you guys are, but none of us are probably making any big money doing this.
Right. The only one making money that I know about.
It's all about love and support and encouraging one another. And there he's got, there you go. So that's a big part of it too, is just continuing to give each other spaces and networking and promote each other. And just because, you know, what is it, you know, the rising tide lifts all ships, or whatever the thing is, you know, we connect, and just in a very loving and kind way, and encourage one another. There's probably something in the Bible about that somewhere.
I'm sure. Yeah. Hey, what's your last question we got here?
Yo, so actually, I was just gonna say that we have officially geeked out along with you all, me and Jimmy. So we're official geeks now.
You are.
Yeah.
You
In
are
the club.
absolutely.
Right. So yeah, we I know you were talking about maybe having us on the show at some time. I know I can speak for Jimmy because neither one of us like had to clock in, so to speak. So
That's right.
we're pretty much, we're good almost anytime. Well, I mean, I got semi clock in, but it's like just music stuff. I got to play a bunch of. In fact, tonight one of those nights. But yeah. Well, let's end the show like this. What is your favorite thing about being a Christian?
Love it.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I feel like I've been a Christian my whole life because I've been a Christian almost my whole life. So, but I think the biggest thing is just understanding God's grace and the fact that, because it's the more I think about it every day, the more I realize how amazing it actually is, because I'm just a sinner who continues to stumble over himself constantly, and understanding that God's love doesn't change. That's I mean, that's the thing that continues to amaze me about this life, for sure.
Yeah. For me, it's that it's only in a relationship with God that I get my two biggest needs met. And that's intimacy and purpose. Every person wants these two things and needs these two things, intimacy and purpose. And a lot of sin and destruction happens when we try to seek our satisfaction of those two things anywhere else but God.
That's good
And
stuff.
so for me, it's the intimacy that no one knows me better. No one knows my mistakes better than God, but nobody loves me more. And that's intimacy. You can't, it's just so precious, but it's also, but he's not condescending. He's like, let's go do something together. Let's be on purpose together. Let's be on this mission together. And I think that combination, you can't find it in any other relationship. Everything flows from that. And I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much for coming on here, and hopefully, we're going to promote this. We're going to get you some new listeners as y'all promote those bands who share the gospel, and we're all in this together.
Yeah, we'll share this too, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome, guys. This is great.
Man, God bless you.
All right.
God bless you guys.